So we're going to start with kind of where we left off, and so we'll start where we left off. So if you could do me the kindest of favors, and in your packet, we want to turn to page 8. Turn to page 8, and it's the handwritten pages. So we're talking about what it means to be ethical. We talked about how to start thinking about ethics in a more kind of concrete way, in terms of the fact that there's dignity and honor in being human because God made us. And so we need to give that dignity and honor, not because someone wears the right clothes or they come from the right clan or tribe, or because they look a certain way, but because God made all of us. So there's that. And that all human beings are looking for these 3 things, which are significance, belonging, and safety. And so ethical behavior allows us to keep locked into making sure that we define these roles very distinctly for ourselves and for other people. So I'm going to start this next part, or part 2, with this story. So in 1995, I moved from Dayton, Ohio, where I grew up, to St. Louis, Missouri. And when I went to St. Louis, I had bought my first real car. And I say real car because I had 2 things that made it a real car. One was a car payment, and the second was insurance. Because up until that point, I was missing one of those things. I'm not going to tell you which one. All right. So I had a quote unquote new car. So this was in 1995. I had an '85 Honda Civic. Right. So my car was already 10 years old, but I had payments on it, and it was doing all this stuff. And so I had a 1985 Honda Civic. Now, what do you guys remember about cars in 1985? They were sturdy. All right. Manual. Okay, so manual windows. Yep, I had manual windows. And what other necessity was missing in cars in 1985? Cup holders. Right? Do you guys remember you had to get the thing from 7-Eleven? You clip it on your door, right? And when you open the door, your bottle is swinging, it's spilling all over the place. They didn't have cup holders in cars in 1985, right? So my car didn't have cup holders. And because my car was 10 years old, when I moved to St. Louis, I got in an apartment that was about 4 blocks away from work. And so just in case the car didn't function the way it needed to, I could still get to work, because that's what's really important, right? You got to bring that bread home. So anyway, so in 1985, 1985, I had the '85 Honda Civic. 1995, I moved to St. Louis, Missouri. I'm living 4 blocks away from work. Gas was 99 cents a gallon. So how do you think I got to work? But how did I get to work? I drove to work, right? I'm an American. I'm not walking no 4 blocks if I don't have to, right? So in 1995, all this stuff is happening. I live 4 blocks away from work. I drive because it's only 99 cents a gallon. There's 4 blocks. Why not? Right? I also experienced a social phenomenon that was also happening at the time. And there was this thing called coffee. That was in 1995. That was the explosion of like coffee everywhere. There are coffee shops on every corner. Every meeting we had coffee. And I remember one meeting we were in. I'm eating these M&Ms. I'm like, they're a little bit bitter, but that's cool. And so I keep popping these M&Ms, and then all of a sudden I hear this humming sound. And I'm like, what is that sound? What's going on? And then I figured out it was me. Those weren't M&Ms. They were chocolate-covered coffee beans. And so I've been popping these coffee beans, and now I'm just, like, oh, making all this noise.
I wouldn't say I was addicted to coffee. I would say that I had a strong urge to have a need for coffee on a day-to-day basis, right? So I live 4 blocks away from work. I have this need for coffee, so I have to get some coffee before I go to work. So what kind of coffee carrying device do you think I have to carry this coffee? The goofy thing hanging off my door. All right. What else do you think I might have? I didn't have a thermos. I just had my grandmother's coffee mug. Right? My grandmother's. So since I live 4 blocks away from work, what time do you think I leave to get to work? 5 minutes before, which means I'm going to be what? Late. 5 minutes late. So, the other thing about my car, my 85 Honda Civic, was that it was a standard transmission. Amen. A stick, if you will. Yeah. So to drive a stick, you need what? You need both hands. You need both feet. So I have to have this cup of coffee. I have my grandmother's coffee mug, right? So I fill it up. I know already what? I'm going to be what? Late. So I jump in my car. I'm using both feet to drive my car. I'm blazing these 4 blocks to get to work. My usual parking space has been what? Taken. And I'm like, so now I got to back up and all this kind of stuff. So I'm doing this and I'm running with my coffee. And what's happening with my coffee? It's spilling all over the place. Can you tell me why is my coffee spilling? Because it doesn't have a lid. Why else is my coffee spilling? Because I'm running around. What else? Why? Why else? I'm late. What else? I don't have everything that I need. Now, I will tell you that this kept happening until I figured out the answer to this conundrum. Because I kept asking myself, why is the coffee spilling? And then it occurred to me, it's because it's what's in the cup. Given those same circumstances, if I had water in the cup, what would happen? It would spill. If I had grape juice in the cup, what would happen? It would spill. So it's more important to know what's in your cup. When we're being ethical people, we have control of what's in our cup. If I put hate in my cup, in the situations where I'm feeling stressed, when I'm feeling short on time, when I don't feel like I can get my goals met, when I don't feel significance, when I don't feel like I belong and I don't feel safe, what spills out of my cup if I've been putting hate in there? Hate. At the same time, if I fill my cup with love and I get stressed out, or I'm not feeling significant, or I don't feel like I belong, or I'm lacking some sense of safety, what starts to spill out then? Love. And I know it sounds really hokey, but I want you to think about when somebody cuts you off in traffic, what do you give them? Whatever comes out of you is what was already in you. When somebody shortchanges you or you don't feel like they've treated you right, however you respond to them has nothing to do with them. It has everything to do with what's in your cup. And a lot of times we walk around with half-empty cups. And it's mostly half empty because we didn't fill it up with stuff we wanted to fill it up with. I have this joke kind of thing that I use in some of my presentations, and I ask, what's in a hole that's 3 feet deep? Nothing, or it wouldn't be a hole, right? There are two laws of the universe that are extremely important to remember. That if there is a hole, the universe will fill it with something. Look at potholes, for example. Have you ever been walking and noticed a pothole? What's in a pothole? What's in there? What's that? Rocks are in there. What else is in a pothole? Gravel is in a pothole. What else is in a pothole? Junk, right? It's usually got got water trapped in it. You know, there's a hot Cheetos bag in there somewhere, right? all the stuff that's not supposed to be in the pothole. What should be in the pothole? Concrete should be filling that hole, right? But when we don't fill the hole with something, the world will fill it for us. So whatever is in our cup is going to spill out. All right? Turn to page 11 for me. Matthew 6:19. Lay not up for yourselves treasures upon earth, where moth and rust doth corrupt, and where thieves break through and steal. But lay up yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust doth corrupt, where thieves do not break through nor steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. The light of the body is, the light of the body is the eye. And if therefore thine eye be single, then thy whole body shall be full of light. But if thine eye be evil, then thy whole body shall be full of darkness. If therefore the light that is in thee be darkness, how great is that darkness? No man can serve two masters. For if either you will either hate the one, and love the other, or else you will hold to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and mammon. Right? So you will be either full of light and love, or you will be full of what? Darkness. Right? And the thing about the ethical thinking is when we're operating in light, darkness does not understand us. Darkness can't understand the light. So somebody on your job talked to you poorly or treated you bad, and you respond to them with love, with this dignity and honor because God created them. They don't understand that. How can you do that? How do you participate with that person who just called you that bad name? Because you're full of light. They can't understand it. But the thing about light is for it to be for other people to even have to understand it, it has to be present. So if there's going to be any understanding of your light, you must be shining. Even they don't comprehend it, they can see it, and then they start to wonder, okay, so what is it about you, or how are you able to do that thing that other people can't? How are you able to be ethical in the face of what Pharaoh is trying to do? And so that's what we do. So if you could, just write down, what do you think this passage is talking about in terms of heart? Is it the physical mechanism that we use to pump blood? Is that what this verse is talking about? What is it talking about in terms of heart? And when it talks about corruption, what do you think it's talking about in terms of corruption? Is it talking about a corrosive, rusty piece of metal? What do you think that corruption is? And then what is light? Both in a practical term as well as a metaphorical term, as well as a biblical term. What does it mean by light? And lastly, how does one get to darkness? What is darkness? All right. So just take a couple of minutes and give some responses to those three pieces.
Night, night.
right, we'll stop right here. This is not the SAT, so I don't want people stressing out. I did want to hear, what were your impressions of, what are the concepts of heart that this passage could be referring to, outside of the physical mechanism? Focus, okay. So heart being your focus, where your focus is, all right. What's that?
Motivation.
Your motivations, where your motivations are. Okay. Compassion, where your compassion is. All right. Do you have a packet, sir? Oh, come on up, man. You got to come join me. Yes, ma'am.
How we think, live, and treat others are a core way of life and being God-like.
Okay, so being God-like, our core of who we are, that is our heart. All right. When it talks about corruption, what kinds of things do you think is talking about? Anything that takes away from the heart and being God-like. Anything that takes away. Other folks. Yes, sir.
Being messed up.
Being messed up, right? Having your priorities astray, or your priorities conflicting with what's helping you reach your goal, right? Light. What is it talking about in terms of light?
Well, that's why I use focus.
Oh, focus for light. Okay. Okay. What else? Integrity. All right.
Actually walking the word.
Okay, actually walking the word. Entrance. What was that? Okay, entrance. Vision. The ability to see. Right? All right. And lastly, darkness. What is it referring to in terms of darkness? What's that? Okay, being unfocused. Being lost, to be deceived. What's that? Sin. Okay. Cool. Yeah. So we'll move on from there. If you can turn to page 12, I want to talk about a few things not to do. There's this concept that we should consistently keep in front of us, which we'll spend more time talking about a little bit later, but this concept of trophies versus fruit, right? They both serve purposes, but sometimes we get those two things confused. What is, metaphorically speaking, I'll tell you a story, all right? So my grandmother, she passed 2 years ago, and in her passing, we had to deal with all of her effects, everything that she left behind, right? And my grandmother was an avid bowler. That was her thing, right? She tons of bowling balls. She had this one that looked like the galaxy. So you look at it and it's like you're in outer space or something. It was just really cool stuff. She was an avid bowler. That was her thing, you know. It was Jesus and then bowling. You know, it was like that. And so my grandmother had all of these trophies. I mean, all the way back from the 60s, and she just had them all over the apartment. It was just impressive stuff. These trophies were absolutely just impressive. And then you can see like the architectural design of each trophy through the years and how they use different symbols and all this kind of stuff. Just really intricate kinds of stuff. And when we passed, we had no idea what to do with those. Why? Those were her trophies. I mean, it meant something to us because it meant something to her. But now that it can't mean anything to her, then it actually meant nothing to us. But my grandmother needed those. She needed trophies, right? I mean, that's how she could determine how accomplished she was. So if you're going to come on up to the front, because we got plenty of handouts and stuff up here, but none in the back. And so she needed those trophies. I have degrees. I need those trophies to get stuff done, right? But are those trophies any good to you? No, they're not. Right? Unless I'm able to use them to create the second part, which is fruit. What is fruit? Or just think of it metaphorically. What is fruit?
Results of your work.
It's the results of someone's work, right? Fruit is to be what? Eaten, to be shared, right? A lot of times we think that our accomplishments and the great things that we've done is fruit, and it's not. It's a trophy. And trophies have their places. But we should not get those two things confused. All right? So that's the first thing. You do not eat your seeds. You know, when I was in the world, they used to say, you know, you don't get high on your own supply. Some of y'all know what I'm talking about. Some of y'all don't, and that's okay. Right? But you don't eat your seeds. So the things that are bringing you success and the things that you're giving out to people, you don't consume those yourself. Your gifts and your talents are not for you.
Wow.
They're not for you. All right? Secondly, don't forget that the highest calling is to serve. Jesus Christ came to serve. He was both God and man. The universe was at his disposal, and he came to serve. One of my favorite superheroes is Superman. I love Superman, right? Because bullets can bounce off of him, and he got laser eyes, and he can fly, and all this kind of stuff. And I don't know about y'all, but I would think that if you had all that power, you would become king of the world. But he doesn't do that. He chooses to become a newspaper boy. A nerd. An everyday human just like us. Our highest calling is to serve. Because when we serve, what do we actually start to produce? Fruit. We don't produce trophies. And the people who are working to produce trophies, guess what their reward is? A trophy! That's it! Right? That's it. All right. I got to keep this moving. We've got a lot of stuff to get through. Do not get too attached to things because they will be snatched from you. Right? Anybody ever had a new car? In that first week of getting a new car, does somebody hit it with their ding the door or smash the thing? Right? I had a brand new, this is my first brand new, like ordered everything out off the thing. I had the car for a week. I'm sitting at the top of at the bottom of a hill. A teenager comes over the top of the hill on a rainy day. Brand new car, gone. Broke my little heart. Taught me a lesson. Don't hold on too tight. Right? Don't hold on too tight. Let's see. Don't forget that challenges are for learning and growth. The things that are happening to you is for your growth and your development so that you learn something. It is not, God, why me? Why not you? What makes you so special? Right? Part of, the 70s did a number on a lot of us because everybody got a trophy. You got one for most creative skip. You got one for the winner. You got one for most improved. You got one for showing up. You got blah, blah, blah. And what that's done is made us crazy spoiled. Right? Somewhere we lost that competitive spirit. Right? So, at any rate. Do not keep secrets because they will expose you. Your secrets will expose you. Whatever that you don't deal with privately will be dealt with publicly. Arnold Schwarzenegger. Lots of money. Enough money to hide his stuff for 10 years. Well, it's actually 13 years, right? Because the kid is 13 now, right? Able to hide his stuff. And it was so funny, when the news came out, there was a leak to the news. Because nobody knew about this, but there was this leak. Guess where you think the leak came from? His wife. She found out, he had a conversation with her because she finally confronted him and said, is that? Because he looked just like, he was like, oh, yes, I had to pump him up. Right? And so his wife actually leaked to the news, right? Y'all know some of y'all would have did the same thing. I'm going to tell all your business. Do not seek to hide the weak areas. Seek those who complement your weak areas. The places where you keep falling into those holes that we read about earlier. Find people who can help keep you out of those holes. There are some places I can go, but I won't go, right? Because I know that there's some traps there for me, right? So there's that. Do not seek to become a martyr. Share your power. Basically, what martyr means is that you die for a cause. Do not seek to die for a cause. Somebody already did that for you. That job's already been taken by Jesus. I just want to make sure we put that in, right? So people, I'm going to die for this cause, blah, blah, blah. Somebody already did that. Move on to, greater works than these shall you do, right? So how about living for a cause? Let's try that, right? And it's so funny because people say, I die for my boy. Not over here. I live for my boy. I'm going to live so my boy can live too. But I'm not that. No. You got one life to live. And it ain't just a soap opera. Lastly, don't forget to fill your cup, because if you don't, somebody else will. Or something else will. All right? So you fill your cup. So those are the things not to do. One of the things that's also important is that you are not serving ethically until something that you're doing is hurting you personally. It's not a stretch until you feel a little bit of pain, right? Because I know when I'm doing my sit-ups or I'm doing my curls, until it starts burning, because I can get up in there, get the bar and just be, I'm doing 400 reps. That's no workout, right? I mean, if I do them long enough, then I start getting some benefits. But if I do it in the short term, I'm not getting a lot of benefits. And so when we think about developing character, it's important that we do it to a point that it actually starts to cause us some strain. Because until we start paying for something, we don't value it, right? It's funny, people ask me, will you come speak here and speak here and that kind of stuff? And I'm like, yes, I will. And they say, is it free? And my answer is, no. You got to pay something. Now, everybody can't afford, the big money that I charge, but I will work with you, and you will pay something. If it's nothing but $10, and I need gas at least. Come on now, right? When it was 99 cents, I'd be more apt to do that. But at $4 a gallon, I need to do some other things, right? So, where's my other page? So there was. Let's go to page 13. Now, a lot of times, what happens when we're thinking and talking about how to be ethical, people ask the question: how do I balance my personal life with my spiritual life? I mean, that's a real question, right? How do I balance those things? And what I'd like to suggest to you, that there is no such thing. There is no such thing as balance between my personal life and my spiritual life. You should have one life, right? But what that means is, when you are able to make that transition, it means that your life just looks differently than it did before, right? So when you're able to make that transition, what it says is that I have a standard for how I'm going to live, and this becomes more important, and it becomes all important to everything that I do. All right? Because what it does is it takes out the struggle of trying to find this concept of balance. And I have come to understand that there is no balance in trying to have a lifestyle. And I don't know who created that concept or who talked about that, but they really did a number on this. Because if you punch an undercover cop, what's happening to you? You're going to jail. Why? You assaulted an officer. He wasn't in uniform. He's still an officer. Right? I saw plenty of episodes of the Cosbys where Bill Cosby at 3 o'clock in the morning had to leave his beautiful wife and go give birth to a baby. Why? Because he's a doctor. Right? Especially on the Cosby Show. That was such a good show. I like that. Right? So when we talk about being ethical people, it is not a hat or a uniform that we wear. It becomes who we are. Right? So, and the way that we look at who we want to be and who we are largely depends on our paradigm. And a paradigm is simply the way you see the world. And the way you see the world impacts what it is that you'll see. All right? 13, 14. So, yes, ma'am.
Can I just reiterate a little bit?
Yes, ma'am.
What I think I hear you saying is that I am a Christian, and I'm very proud of that. So in the workplace, out of the workplace, in my friends' homes, wherever I am a very proud, loving Christian woman, and God is first and foremost in my life, no matter what I do. No matter what I do, where I go, it's kind of like this. You know what I'm saying? And I do this very proudly. Anyone that knows me knows that Karen, if you ever want to know anything about the Lord or God or just, it's not so much that too, but it's like even my kids who aren't saved, they know that God comes first and foremost. So you're saying, I live the life of Jesus. I live the life of God, and I do it no matter where I go. When I'm in the grocery store, I treat people at a certain level. I do foster care, and anybody that comes into my home knows we pray, we do this, we go to Sunday school. You know what I'm saying? It's like everything I do according to this. Is that what you're saying? That we have a higher standard as Christians that we live by? Because this tells us that that's what we must do.
I am saying that. Yes, I am saying that. I'm also saying, and I don't know if folks heard it this morning in the morning prayer, but I'm also saying that who we are speaks more than what we say about stuff, right? So, for example, in my job, I work for the government. There are parties that happen and all that kind of stuff. After hours stuff. There are things that I have to attend, right? There are behaviors that I don't condone. One of the things that I do not do in that environment is I don't engage in things that are against my principles. But I also don't tell other people about how bad their behavior is. Right? And so one of the things that's really important is that we let our light shine so people can see our good works. Right?
Exactly.
And so, and your Christian walk can be different than mine. But my Christian walk is in being the good example. Right? So I exude Christ's behaviors, even though I may not be in a situation where I can use Christ's words, or I can use the scriptures. But everything that I do is exuding what is in me. So I've gone from just spilling a coffee cup to being a super soaker. Right? So I'm So because and it's so funny because when I do my presentations, people walk away, they're like, "You're not a preacher, but that was a good sermon," right? Because you've been tricked. I just showed you a light that you can't comprehend, and that's okay because you've obviously seen the light. You don't know what it means, but you've seen it, right? And so that's what I would encourage. In terms of our ethical behavior, what people should experience, particularly people who aren't saved, they should experience something from us that they don't understand because they've seen it. Not because it's so weird or out there, but they've seen this light and they're like, what was that? That was something happened. I'm not sure what it is. Because once we get to that point, when they're thinking about what that light is, then they are drawn to Christ to say, how do I get what you have? What is that? My wife and I, we looked up this this new website I'm gonna do, and it's called corrosive. Oh, where is she? Corrosive influence. Because our influence is going to be so impactful on other people that it corrodes all the crazy stuff in their life, and all that is left is the gold, right? So anyway, I want to keep moving on. So it's also important that we understand this concept of discretionary effort. And discretionary effort basically says that you have hired me to do a job, and I will do it. But at what level I do it will determine how I feel about what you're asking me to do. All right? So discretionary effort. So, for example, my employer says I need to be there at 8 o'clock to start my job, and I come at 7:59 to do my job, and I feel good about the employer. What percentage am I going to give that employer? From 0 to 100, what do you think I'm going to give them? If I like my place of employment, I'm going to give them 100% because I like my employment. If I feel like my employer is racist or sexist or discriminatory in some kind of way, and people tell dirty jokes and people are lying and there's backbiting and stabbing and all sorts of stuff, what kind of percentage am I going to give that employer? I'm gonna give them the minimum of what I have to according to my contract, right?
Why would you not still give him 100%? Because that's who you are. Why would you still not give him everything? Because you're going back to that. You are a Christian, and you're still going to do your best and be your best because that's who you are in here.
Yep.
Just because other people are wrong doesn't mean that you should be wrong.
Right, and I use that because I didn't get a chance to carry it to the next level. But no, it's okay. But our natural man, that's what we would do.
Right. But we're above that.
I'm certainly trying to be. I haven't, when you start seeing me levitating around and, then I've made it, right? So I'm not there yet, but I'm certainly working towards that, right? And we all should be working towards that, right? But if you see me floating around, run, okay? There's some serious stuff happening. Because that's not in the Bible. Ain't nobody float around in the Bible, right? Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir.
Because it's hard for me. And I had to pray about this in a meeting, and you get disrespected, and this is mammon now. This is the world. This is not a church situation. In a mammon situation, you're getting disrespected. The supervisor is ignoring it, and then the supervisor, instead of encouraging you, comes back and even further discourages and chastises you. The work for giving 100% in that case, it's like I'm gonna keep my job and I'm gonna keep a paycheck, but 100%. I don't see myself trying to go over and beyond for what? It's time for me to remove myself from that situation.
Hold up.
I don't think it's always a conscious thing either. If you have that distraction or someone's always bearing down on you, it's hard to give your all when you have that pressing on you. It's like you can't think with a clear mind when somebody's constantly down on you and things like that. So I think like it might be intentional and like yes, of course we should, do all of that and put our all into everything that we do so that we can shine and get light. But can you shine as bright when someone's throwing stuff down on you?
And that is the real challenge. That is where, one of the things I didn't get a chance to talk about with this respect card, and you should have it at your spot, is that how easy is it to be respectful to someone who's respectful to you? Oh, that's really easy, right? That's an easy thing to do, right? How easy is it to be respectful in the face of someone being disrespectful to you?
That's where it becomes a battle. It becomes a battle in the mind. You're going back and forth. You're hearing the word of God being, constantly you're being reminded, but at the same time, you have these negative thoughts that are over here too. So it's like you almost have to step back and just go somewhere and pray or whatever.
What did Christ say if someone strikes you? Why did he say turn the other cheek? My first reaction is I'm gonna knock this fool out. That's my first reaction, right? That's my human response. So that's my human response. At the same time, what Christ said was turn the other cheek. Right? That's right. He teaches us that in this word. So in terms of respect, when you're respectful to someone who's respectful to you, where's your reward? But when you're being respectful to someone who's being disrespectful to you, now game on. Right? And I never, anytime I get one of those video games, and I don't play a lot of them, I don't like starting at the beginner level. I want to go to level 2.
Right.
Why do I want to go to level 2? Because that's the challenge. Right? So you have to be mindful of that. You have to, one of the things that I talk about in a lot of my trainings, because we have a lot of esoteric terms that we use to talk about behaviors in the workplace and all this kind of stuff. And I need to find a quantitative way to help measure some of these successes. And so discretionary effort is one of those things that we have to be mindful of. And for us who are walking in Christ's, walking the Christ path, if you will, we have to recognize that is a symptom that something's wrong. That when our discretionary effort goes down, when we don't want to give 100%, we have to, and sometimes we know exactly what it is. That means that we got to get on our knees and make some stuff happen. Like, Lord, give me the strength. Lord, let me know what this lesson is. Lord, what sin is in my way that is allowing me to have to learn this lesson. I saw your hand, sister.
Can I just say one thing? Because
Yes,
I just went through this situation with a boss I have. Like, I stay in Mankato, but I live in a very small town of like 500. And I got elevated to manager position within 2 months' time of a Subway. But the actual owner came and said, I want to elevate you. Even though I've never even met you, I know the sales of the store and everything is reflecting that you know what you're doing. And so just last week, the general, and then within 2 days, he came back and said, by law, you have to learn certain things because I actually want you to start being a general manager for my 7 chains. Well, last week, the general manager came and fired me and said that I felt like somebody else needed to take your position. And I was like, to begin with, I started off with $725 with the degree. That was kind of like a insult, but it's like, I am who I am. I'm going to go above and beyond because that's who I am. And so, like, when I looked at it at first, I was kind of disappointed, like, because I put my all in all into it. But then I also wrote her a letter, sat down with her, we talked. I said, thank you. I just want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to be in this position. But I also emailed the owner and said, I don't know if you're in this, or do you know what even is going on? And I wrote him this long letter. And he actually emailed me back and said, you know what, I had not a clue what was going on. But as of next week, I need to meet with you and her because something has to be done with her. But I also just pray, like, Lord, this is not what you have for me. And I let it go. But at the same time, I didn't down her or be like, oh, you know. I just said, okay, this isn't for me.
I don't know if you guys have picked up the shift that Bishop has been talking about. And the shift that he's been talking about has nothing to do with us speaking in tongues. It has nothing to do with us, Hebel Shanding and all that kind of stuff that typically are things that are related to our brand, if you will, of the Christ path. But it is actually in those situations being confronted with natural things that could shut us down, rising above it and say, I am going to be Christ in the earth right here, right now, because that's how I determine that I'm saved. It's how I live my life in the face of those things that someone without God's grace and without knowing God would crumble to. Right? Because it's in those tough times when, and this is the thing, when someone's being disrespectful to you or you're feeling this pushback, and it's easy for us to get sucked into thinking that it's really about us. That's a trophy. I'm thinking that my trophy is at stake. My pride, all the things that I have created around me is at stake. When in fact it's a spiritual thing between two spirits, and the people who benefit from that are the people around you in the environment. When you have those encounters and you walk away and you're like, oh, what was that? I know I did the right thing, but it didn't, what was that? The people around you are going, wow, how could they take that? What was that? It's the light that they don't understand, right? And those people who are going to be called to the light will then come and ask you and have conversations with you. As long as you stay on the path and don't get sucked into thinking that it was about you. I can't believe she talked to me like that. What was he thinking? He can't do. Look, I'm a man, all right? You can't talk to another man like that. You are a child of who? Of God. Right? I'll take your hand and then your hands.
I just want to say kudos to you because just as the thing says, the dignity, there is honor, you couldn't have done a better thing. You handled that so professionally, and God is going to reward you for that. And my spirit right now is just going crazy, and I just want to commend you for handling that the way you did. God bless you.
Good. Yes, ma'am.
I agree with her. I'm all excited. And she did what God wants us to do anyway. By her doing what she did, being God-like, it's also teaching that person. Because we're supposed to learn, live it, walk it, and then teach others. Pass it on. They're going to learn from it.
Yep.
They're going to visually wow. They're going to learn from what she did. Oh, I'm really excited.
All right, good. Stirring up some good stuff in here. All right, let's go to page 15 real quick. I want to try to blaze through this stuff and then do some fun stuff. Not that this isn't fun, but page 15, character. I am as strong as the test that I take, whether I pass it or fail it. Right? There are some people who won't take the LSAT. Why? What's the LSAT? It's for law school. Why will they not take the LSAT? A, is hard, and secondly, they're not prepared for that. Their character has not gotten them to a point where they can take that kind of stuff. And they're not called. Everybody's not called to take the LSAT. Some people are called to take the GMAT. Right? So you are as strong as the test that you take, whether you pass it or fail it. And what's the great thing about passing it? It means that I can move on. I just went through that door, so now I'm available to go do that. If I fail it, what's the value in that?
I know that I have to learn something. That door either may not be for me, or I'm not qualified yet to walk through that door, right? So these tests are good things for us. Foolish people have resumes with no fruit. Have you ever heard people talk about what they can do and how they do it and how good they are at it, and then they show up and you're like, that's it? Right? One of the greatest examples is FEMA. Right? The whole New Orleans fiasco. This guy had a great resume, but when it came to executing the plan, had no idea what was going on. Right? And what happens when that happens? When you have people who are big talkers or have these great resumes without any fruit, people die. Physically and spiritually. Right? All right. What you don't deal with privately will be brought to light publicly. You will be exposed. At the same time, what you bring to light publicly can be dealt with privately. Right? So being open and honest about things, we can, sister, you don't need to talk about that right here. Let's come over here, right? Or brother, you might want to go ahead and say this thing, right? Because it's got to come up to come out. It's something that you'll often hear people say, right? Let's turn to page 16. It's important to have a succession plan, and in business they talk about succession planning in terms of how do we keep the business going forward? How do we build it so that the capacity of the organization continues to grow? And in terms of being ethical people, it's important that we have a personal succession plan. And the personal succession plan basically goes like this. Have one person in front of you that you look at, that you look up to as an idol, not as an idol, let me back up. As someone to model yourself after, someone on your level, and then someone that you're helping. Why do we need those things? Because all of those three things help keep us humble and keep us in touch with reality. Because some of us sometimes we get too big for our britches. Has anyone heard that before? Right? Or we start smelling ourselves. That's what my grandmother used to say. But boy, you smelling yourself. What's wrong with you? So those things keep us humble and keep us in check. We always have to have someone that we're responsible to. And we also have to share information with folks. And we also should be serving someone. All right? So those things help keep us in check. And also, you are as good as the people that you're able to teach to be like you. All right? And more importantly, in our relationships, you're as good as the people you are able to help teach to be like God. All right? And so that's important. Page 17. So now this is the irony of not building your character effectively, is that you will... So first of all, can I move to calculus if I haven't mastered geometry? No. I can't move to that higher level math stuff until I get the basics down, right? Because even if they pass me, when the test came, how would I do on the test? I probably wouldn't do my best on the test because I don't have that foundational work, right? So when we talk about character, what typically happens when we've tried to skip a test or we tried to skip a level in terms of building our character, that test keeps coming back to us. And it keeps coming back to us. And it's almost as if we draw that same test because we haven't figured out what our antecedents should be. We haven't figured out how to solve that thing, so it keeps coming back until we get to a point where we get tired of being tired and sick of being sick. And then we get sick and tired of being sick and tired. Right? And then we start figuring out how to do some things. All right? We also draw those people that are challenging to us. Those bosses will keep coming to you until at some point you figure out, okay, this is what God wants me to do. God wants me to start my own company. Right? And so we keep having those challenges until we learn those things. And we also, when we've skipped the level, we avoid those people who can hold us accountable. People who can actually tell us about ourselves. One of the biggest problems with Michael Jackson, do you guys remember Michael Jackson? Yeah. Michael Jackson did not have somebody to tell him, no, that's stupid, don't you do that to your nose. Right? All he needed, I was hoping that he would live a little bit longer because I wanted him to hire me as his no guy. Right? One day when I get big, I'm gonna hire a no person. And that's all they do is they just tell me no. But like, can we go do no? Why? Because it's stupid. Oh, okay. Right? So then my wife doesn't have to do it all the time. Right? Give her a break, get some vacation. So it's also important that we make quality choices, and quality choices will make you look foolish in the eyes of some other people. Some people will be like, you shouldn't let people talk to you like that. You shouldn't blah, 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 blah. And I mentioned this in the cathedral not too long ago. But that's the difference between being a doormat and being a bridge. Doormats, people typically say, well, that's happening to me. It's all about me. You shouldn't let people talk to you like that. And doormats go, yeah, you're right. Yeah, because that means they're just walking all over me. They're doing whatever they want and all over me. But the thing to remember is that a doormat leads to a small destination. It's a short distance. But a bridge leads across some things, right? So you're going somewhere when you become a bridge. And so when you quote unquote allow people to walk over you and you're helping them to get someplace, then you are a bridge. And I'll tell this short story. So I live in Mounds View, and so it was a Saturday morning. I was doing some errands, and so decided to get some lunch, early lunch. So I go into this bar restaurant place, and I sit down, and I have my menu. And when I sat down, I looked at the end of the bar. There was a guy who was sitting there who was red-faced and obviously drunk. I mean, just slurred speech, the whole nine. And so I'm not afraid of drunk people because I can fight. But they're unpredictable, so you never know what you're going to get. And so he's sitting down there, and I close my menu. I give it to the staff, and the guy moves from the end of the bar and sits right next to me. And I'm like, here we go, right? But I'm a Minnesotan, so I know how to be fake. So we're just chit-chatting and that kind of stuff. And then he breaks into his thesis as to why he sat next to me. And he looks at me and he says, I don't like niggers. And I go, wow, that's a heck of an introduction, isn't it? Right? And so I do what most Minnesotans would do. I change the subject, right? So I try to change the subject, but something in my spirit said, go back to that. So I go back to it and I said, well, when you use that word, what do you mean by it? And so he says, I mean ignorant, I mean, they're on welfare, ghetto, loud rap music, all this negative stuff that he had created in his mind. And I said, okay, well, do you know any white people who fit that category? And he says, yeah. I said, how about those twins? So we started talking about sports and that kind of stuff. And then he comes back to me and he says, you know what? I don't like niggers, but I like you. So I'm really conflicted at this point. I'm not sure how to feel about that, right? So I just kind of smile and I say, well, when you think about me, what is it that you like about me? And he says, you're even-headed, you're articulate, you seem educated, all this great stuff. And I said to him, well, what if all of the people that you think look like me, that you've met, all the people that you've met that you think look like me, were idiots? All of them, all the ones that you've met that you think look like me are idiots. And everybody else that you haven't met yet is just like me. And he looked at me and he said, I gotta pee. So he gets up and he goes to the bathroom, And so I'm like, phew, I escaped this, right? So I get my my ticket and all this kind of stuff. And so I start walking, I head out the door. And guess who meets me at the door? It's this guy, right? But he looks a little bit different. His hair's combed over to the side. He's got water driplets, and he's got a damp napkin. And he reaches out to me with this damp napkin, and he says, I raise chickens. If you ever need fresh eggs, give me a call. So I take the napkin, I go my way, and he goes his way. What happened in that encounter? He changed his heart. What's that? I opened his eyes to something different. What would have happened? Now, could you be upset? Would you have been upset with me if I would have gave this dude a piece of my mind? How dare you call me a name like that? Don't you know who I am? What is going on with you? I got this degree and that degree. I came from this family. I'm doing it. I live over here. I got this and that and the other thing. What do you think? Pooh! Would you have been upset with me if I would have done something like that? I mean, could you at least understand where I'm coming from if I would have responded like that? Yeah, in the natural, you can understand that. That it would even also, it might make sense in the natural if I behaved like that. But had I behaved like that, what would have happened for him? I would have reinforced everything that he thought about people who he thinks look like me. And so when we talk about this concept of being a doormat or a bridge, it would be easy for the simple mind to say, well, you just let him walk all over you. You were a doormat in that situation. You just let him, call you outside of your name and be disrespectful to you, blah, blah, blah. That's what the simple mind would be. But what I knew was that there was some dignity and honor in this man that I needed to honor, because there's something, one of these he's missing, the significance, this belonging, or the sense of safety, that's something that he's missing, that the God in me can give to him to help prick his heart and change his mind. Right? And so in those situations, sometimes we get so caught up in being right that we don't do the right thing. We don't give the kind of love that we should give because we get caught up into our own fruit. We start eating our own seeds, trying to collect trophies. Right? So I want to give you that. I got a lot of stuff to get through. Why did I put so much stuff in here, Patricia? Go to page 18. So the concept of fruit and trophies. Fruit is the labor that can be beneficial to others. So fruit is the things that you can do that can benefit others. Trophies are the things that you do that can benefit who? Yourself, right? And you need trophies. I don't want to degrade that. You need trophies, right? But your trophies are good for you. Page 18, something to never do. Never forget that this is a heart issue. Never forget that this is about all those concepts that we talked about in terms of what is heart. That's what this stuff is. And so it's a spiritual thing that we have to connect each other's hearts to, right? To get to these things, these are all spiritual concepts. We use them in the natural to help identify these spiritual concepts. But these are the kinds of connections that we're all yearning for. Never forget that that character is contagious, right? What happens when you hear a baby laugh? What happens? You typically start laughing. And if you don't laugh per se, you at least get a smile on your face. Right? Why? Because it's contagious. Because you know that they're happy. Right? And then, and the ironic thing is, when you hear a baby laugh, you start thinking about when you were a baby and the kinds of things that made you laugh. Right? Or at least that's how I think. I make those connections. Right? I'm like, oh yeah. I remember, You know, raindrops on roses and whiskers on kittens, bright copper kettles and warm woolen. Am I the only person that knows that song? Oh, okay, cool. I love the sound of music, the Nazis and everything, you know, everything. Everybody got to have a pharaoh, you know. But, all right, anyway. So that's 18. If you turn to page 19. How much time do I have left, Patricia? Oh my goodness, I got so much stuff to go through. Okay, you can read Matthew 7, 1 through 29 on your own. And actually, I think I just put 1 through 20 on here. Page 20, you should know them by their fruits. So I know an apple tree because it has apples. Right? I'm not an arborist. I'm not a scientist who studies plants, so I don't know that stuff. But I do know it because I can see it in you. Page 21, Code of Ethics. Be honest and trustworthy. Be reliable in carrying out assignments and responsibilities. Be truthful and accurate in what you say and what you write and what you do. Be cooperative and constructive. Work to help people build things together. Be fair and considerate in the treatment of others. Be law-abiding, spiritual and natural. So speeding to get into church is wrong. All right, you just negated everything that you're going to church for by speeding, right? So because it's against the law, not because it's a character flaw. There's a difference between having a character flaw and then breaking the law or creating sin. When you speeding, doing 45 in a 10-mile-an-hour zone, you broke the law, and that's a sin. All right. Be committed to accomplishing tasks in a superior way, to the best of your ability. And sometimes particularly if you have the anointing, you will do it beyond your ability. That's how you really know you got it, right? Be economical in the utilization of resources. We don't waste, right? When we're being ethical, we don't discard our stuff in inappropriate places. And I personally believe that we do the social responsibility thing and we recycle, right? We become stewards and caretaker of all the things that God has given us, both spiritual and natural. But that's my personal conviction. It doesn't have to be yours. That we're also dedicated to service and to the improvement of the quality of life in general. And that's not just our lives, that's everybody's life. And ultimately, when we are using this code of ethics, the core of it is being holy. All right? It's the highest level of ethical standards, being holy. And if you look at all of the things that it means to be holy, you'll see it in the workplace. You'll see it in professions that are highly regarded with the trust of the people or the care of people. You'll find those holy concepts in those pieces. Let's see, 7 minutes. All right. 23. You go to page 23. Barriers to ethical behavior, perception of status and prestige, the perception of personal gain. When we believe that what we're doing can help us in some way, or we have the perception that it can help us, then we circumvent these relationships to try to raise and make ourselves big. All right? When we accept the attitudes that other people have in spite of what we know to be true, then that can be a barrier too. Because other people are doing it and they're not getting caught doing it, taking pens from work. It's an accident the first time, right? But when you start saying, well, they owe me this anyway. I did some overtime, so I may as well take these pens, right? Everybody else is doing it. That can be a barrier to ethical decision making. Personality characteristics, individual idiosyncrasies, paradigms and values, how we as individuals interpret the environment around us could be a barrier to being ethical, right? Because if I came from an environment where I'm in survival mode all the time, we're hustling and making stuff happen, my ethics could be questionable when it's time to come out of that. All right? So there's that. Also, conformity, which is matching your behavior and attitudes to the responses of others, right? When we get along just to get along, without regards to our personal convictions, that could be a barrier. Compliance, which is matching your behavior because of some request that someone's made, right? So sometimes we seek to comply. Well, my boss said so they must know right, or they know I'm going to get in trouble for this, but I got the supervisor's approval, so I may as well do it, right? When we follow that can violate ethical standards, all right? And then obedience is matching one's behaviors, attitudes, and responses to meet an explicit demand of an authority figure. So sometimes you can be obedient to something and not have your full heart in it, or not be ethical in carrying out that, because what they asked you to do was unethical. But oftentimes people will say, well, I was doing that because I was following orders, right? Nazis and Jews in Germany. As a matter of fact, the Pope was a Nazi. Not typically in practice, but because he was in that time of the Nazi government, right? But a number of the Nazi soldiers said, I was just following orders. And guess where they ended up? They ended up in Brazil or in The Hague. They were in Brazil because they were dodging persecution and prosecution in Brazil, because Brazil wouldn't extradite them. And then The Hague is the international supermax prison, all right? Because they were following orders. Yes, sir.
Can you give us some advice, especially with the shift? The first 4 was barriers, the personal thing, but then the last 2 are more external.
Yes.
And a lot of us talk about what we've been through. And then now, is this where maybe the chain of command comes in? Or I don't know. You know what I mean? You know where I'm going with this?
I think I know where you're going with this. So the last, and you are correct, the first 3 are personal, and the last 4 deal with the organization that you're involved in. One of the things that's extremely important to realize is that organizations only live because they have a skeleton. And the skeleton is extremely important, because without a skeleton, you would be a blob of mess. Is that correct? Yeah. So organizations are very much the same way. So there's typically a department that everybody has to respond to called human resources. And through human resources, they have this document that gives all the protocols for how people are to interact in that workplace. Ethical standards are tucked in that workplace. So if you're caught into a situation where you're asked to do something that is against your personal stuff, the first thing I would do is get the book. I mean the Bible, but I also mean the personnel manual, right? Yeah. And so, because that backbone is what the organization is made of. The other thing that I would do if I were in situations is I would ask questions for clarity. I would not ask questions to challenge, because there is a difference, right? So the difference being, you go to a supervisor, you go to someone who's asking you to do something, and they have the authority to ask you to do that, and you say, okay, so for clarity, I just need to understand you want me to do this, this, and this. As opposed to saying, I'm not doing that. Personnel said, I talked to so-and-so, and they said, blah, 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 right? So the first thing is, you go get the personnel manual, you read it, you know what it says, and then you ask questions because you know what it says. But you don't go say, I read in the personnel manual on page 6 and Article 7 that this, and this. You don't say that, because you're about to create a fight, right? But you need to take that information so you have it. So when you go ask these questions, you have some foundation from the backbone. So because what you don't want is to be a personality conflict. Because if I have a personality conflict with a cop, what's happening to me? If I'm lucky, I'm going to jail, right? Because we're two dudes, and if we have a personality conflict, if I'm lucky, I'm going to jail. At the same time, I know that there's some things that they can't do to me, that they shouldn't do to me, because I know the law, right? And so because I know that, I govern myself according to what I know about the law, right? So if I get treated out of pocket, blah, 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 I'm going to let it go. Because I'm going to call my lawyer, and I'm going to get paid. So when you see me riding up in 2 Maseratis, I don't know how I'm going to do both. You guys will know what happened, okay? You guys will know what happened. But that's what I would encourage you to do. Particularly when you start talking about organisms, because everybody reports to somebody.
And we're documenting this as well, right?
I would say,
Documenting.
yeah, I would say, document stuff. I would say don't document it on your work computer.
No.
I say don't. I say keep your notes. If you document stuff, keep your notes to yourself. Keep them on your person. I would say, you abide by the rules, because one of the things that typically people try to do in terms of when they've been called on their behavior, when they're called on their behavior, they try to look for excuses by looking at your behavior. And every time that they're wrong, they try to point to the inconsistencies in your behavior. And something I tell my supervisors, and I tell them, be consistent. If you're wrong, be consistently wrong. Because then I can justify, I can say, well, they've been consistently wrong, so they didn't know. So let's help train them so that they know better. Or be consistent. Better is to be consistently right. And then we don't have a problem. But it's when you're wrong, and then you're not wrong, and then you're right, and then, and then it's all this crazy stuff. You don't know if it's intentional or not. And the intent is not what gets people paid. It's the impact that gets people paid, right? And I'm just using pay as a way to talk about the results of settlements and that kind of stuff. Typically, people don't want to get paid. They want some respect. They want these things from an employer. But those are some things to think about. So you read the manual. You know what the manual says. You act accordingly to what that manual says. You become blameless and faultless in terms of how you interact in that workplace, because when you try to call somebody else on their behavior, that's the first thing they're going to do, is try to eliminate your character. There are some things in places I can't go, because I can't have my character in question. I tried to have lunch with some people at work, found out can't do that either, because they talk about stuff, they do stuff that I can't be a part of. If I'm supposed to hold them accountable to that, I can't have them to say, well, he was there with us when we did that. Like, nope, can't do it, right? So that is that. There's a bunch of stuff I wanted to do. I still wanted to do. The last thing I'd like to bring your attention to is, the rest of that stuff you can read yourself. Turn to page 27, and I'll end on page 27. And I'll sum it up just like this. Let this mind be in you, as it also is in Christ Jesus. So as Christ thought, and the love that Christ had for us, let us have that for one another, and let us have for those who are outside of us. All right. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this time. We thank you for the lessons. We thank you for the epiphanies that were given to people. We thank you for this opportunity to worship and to learn and to develop together. We ask that as your dear children leave this space, that they never leave your grace or your mercy. We ask that the lessons learned we are able to enact in our natural lives as well as our spiritual lives, that others may see the light in us and be drawn to you. All these things we ask you for, we thank you for, in your holy and righteous name. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you.
Cool, thank you.